Good afternoon. Today, we're going to look at the few intercity services operated by Transport for Wales, the national operator of Wales. Now, there are a substantial number of intercity services operated by other operators from around the country. However, we're not going to look at them today. There are three primary fleets of trains that Transport for Wales uses to operate their intercity services. Yes, I know occasionally Class 150 or 153 can appear, but I mean, look at them. They're not real intercity trains, I don't care what you say, so I won't review them. However, the remaining three fleets we have, the Class 158, 175, and Mark IV coaches, are indeed proper trains. Well, I mean, we'll have a look at that one now, but they're the mainstay of the intercity fleet of Wales. Let's have a look at them, starting with the Class 158. The 158, or Express Sprinter, is quite an old train, dating from the late 1980s and early 1990s. These two-coach sets were introduced to revolutionise regional railways, British Rail's subsidiary for rural operations, and at this, they most definitely succeeded. They brought about an intercity style of interior for a small two-coach train. I really like them, and they're very popular with many others as well. From the outside though, their age is clearly visible. They certainly don't look anything special, and they're borderline off-putting. But to be honest, passengers don't really care about what their train looks like on the outside. So how about the interiors? Well, the vestibule doors are really unusual. They're biparting and sliding plug, but they're at the end of the vehicles. That's very unusual to see in the UK, and the doors always come off looking a bit flimsy in my opinion. As for the interior of the vestibules, they're pretty dated, but fine. The simple fact they have end vestibules in the first place is a good thing if you ask me. But it's when you make your way into the actual cabin that you really realise why these trains are so popular. It does look like an intercity interior. It's very smart and the seats look fantastic, especially in the new Transport for Wales maquette. They're also pretty comfortable, and window alignment is decent. There's a slight shortage of tables though, and an abnormal amount of airline seats. There's also quite a bit of engine noise from the engines in these trains, but to be honest, it's not that bad. It sort of blends in and is quite subtle relative to, the track noises of anything else. On their own, they're quite vulnerable to overcrowding, being only 2 carriages long. However, in most instances, they're doubled up to 4 coaches, which is generally fine. The disabled toilets are very unusual though. They're rectangular instead of circular, and have sliding doors nonetheless. I don't really know how to describe this, I'll have to put up a picture on screen. Actually, I don't think I have one of them. Anyway, you'll have to sort of imagine it, or look it up. I have no internet, so I can't get anything off there, so it's all going to be my own footage, unfortunately. Overall, I do quite like the Class 158. However, what really lets them down is their speed and performance. Their acceleration isn't fantastic, but their maximum speed of 90 miles an hour is quite dire. It's not good enough for an intercity train, and Transport for Wales realise that. And on to the next class of train, the 175. These are unusual trains, purpose-built for the northwestern Transpennine route. They're 2 and 3 coaches long, and are the backbone of Welsh Intercity operations at the moment. From an external point of view, I think they're about as average as you can get. They look a bit interesting, and admittedly from the platform, when you don't see the front, they look like proper intercity trains. But there's nothing that special about them, from the passenger's perspective that is. On the technical side of things, they are quite unique. They're diesel hydraulic, which is an unusual transmission method in the UK, and they also have this very unusual front-end design. Upon boarding, the single sliding plug doors are actually quite solid compared to the 158s. The vestibules though are rather dull. They feel quite dated, and the recent Transport for Wales refurbishment hasn't really helped them all that much. But when you get into the cabin, things get a lot better. That said though, the roof panels still have that sort of 1990s, 2000s feel, but other than that, the geometric patterns on the seat maquette and carpet is amazing. Furthermore, the seats line up perfectly with the windows. Legroom in the airline style seats is excellent, and the airline to table ratio isn't all that bad as well. One thing I do not like though are these sort of non-table bays. I don't know why they exist and I don't know what they're for. The toilets are pretty big and spacious though, and the ride quality is very good. The trains aren't also that noisy either. However, they fall flat in two main areas. Firstly, they're too short for many of the routes they operate on. On the Manchester to Cardiff line, for example, they're often full and standing thanks to their 2- and 3-coach nature. Secondly, the accommodation isn't really that well suited to the Manchester to Cardiff route either. There's no first class, no buffet, and the standard class seats, whilst ergonomic and comfortable, cannot be reserved. Overall, they're good trains and have served well, but I'm not all that sad to see them go. I think their replacements are probably going to be quite a bit better, but we will have to just wait and see. And now on to the final fleet, the Mark IVs, with Class 67 locomotives. Strictly speaking, these are part of their new fleet. They're brought in to assist the Class 197s on the Manchester to Cardiff route. However, they're already in service now, so I'm going to include them in this video anyway. They're also pretty old. They date from the late 80s and early 90s, like the 158s, and were originally introduced with Class 91 locomotives on the East Coast Main Line. But by the late 2010s, LNER, their East Coast operator, was starting to find they sent surplus to requirements, as their new Class 801 EMUs, Azumas, had taken up a lot of their work. Transport for Wales jumped at the opportunity, and purchased a small fleet of 4-coach sets. These are currently used on the Premier Holyhead to Cardiff Intercity service. They're by far and away the most intercity-like trains in the Transport for Wales fleet, with 2+1 seating in first class, and a full buffet to cater for those first-class passengers. From an external point of view, the coaches are starting to look quite shabby in their old Virgin Trains livery. It hasn't been reapplied since 2015 and hasn't really been properly maintained. That white does not age well. That said, I do believe Transport for Wales are getting a new livery, though I'm not entirely certain of that. At least it has been applied to the DVTs and Class 67s. Other than the livery though, they do look very, very impressive, and it come as quite a surprise to passengers on the Welsh Marchers line when they turn up instead of the usual Class 175. Internally, well, the vestibules aren't great. They certainly look like they've come straight out of the 80s. However, as for the cabin, I really like it. It's very stylish and warm, with those red seats making a very good atmosphere. The buffet is also a nice addition as well. It improves the passenger experience and is far better than a trolley. And then first class. Obviously, like their livery, the sets retain their Virgin Trains refurbishment from the mid-2010s. And personally, I think it looks really, really good in first. The seats are very stylish and smart, and perhaps look a little bit like gamer chairs, but I'm not sure. The atmosphere is good anyways. Overall, the Mark IVs are definitely the best of Transport for Wales intercity trains, which is fortunate, as Transport for Wales are getting more of them. And that's it for my opinions on the current Transport for Wales intercity fleet. Find me in a few months' time when we'll look at the new trains introduced on this service, or rather, services, and see if they're very good, or if they're worse than what they've replaced. It'll be interesting to compare it to this video. I'd like to find out. Also, I do apologise about how long it's taken for this video to be uploaded. It was finished about 5 days after the last one, but I've had no internet for the past time, and it's really annoying. I even had to upload this using my data. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.